again. Back to the channel we are. Today, again, I've got a lot more concepts than when I revealed Sworden. You remember how I mentioned his brother Sworden? Well, here he is, Sworden. So let's just take a look at his level 1. So basically, kind of like Sworden, he used to be a young swordsman, but before he gained access to swords, he used 2 dragon fingernail or toenail, depending, little daggers to attack or like defend his village with Sworden, while the rest of the reinforcements came to attack the dragon or basically anything that dared to threaten the village. Taking a look at his level 5, he's basically just grown up. He's gotten a giant dragon tooth sword, a big gash across his face and his cheek, and he's basically got kind of a similar armor to Sworden. And if you look at this little headband that he's wearing on his helmet, you can notice in level 5 that it turns into some sort of like axe. And he actually uses this to his advantage. So pretty much whenever a dragon gets pretty close to him, he basically just gives him an axe headbutt, which kind of just stabs him in the head with the axe. And I kind of made an animation for his ability. And pretty much we're going to get in, and instead of talking about the lore first, I think we'll get into his ability first. So what his ability does is that he'll slash his sword through the air, which will create giant gusts of wind that will turn into dragon heads and lunge at enemies and deal massive damage. And this can even stun enemies if it really wanted to. So let's say like weak enemies, it would like deal strong enemies, it would deal massive damage and stun them for a little bit. Now, for his damage and stats, I feel like his damage at max would be 100. Also, I didn't make a cost for his ability, but I think that the cost should be like 20 to 30k, kind of similar to Sworden's ability. And now we're gonna get into the lore. So remember in the Sworden video that I talked about how both Sworden and Sworden were fighting a dragon, and Sworden got his eyes like blinded and scarred by the dragon's tail. Same thing happened to Sworden, but the dragon's claw kind of whipped across his face, kind of just leaving a gash there. And it kind of did heal into his scar. That's kind of just how it's kind of been there for a long time. But when Sworden was attacking, he basically just punched the dragon so hard that it actually let a few teeth out. And that's kind of why I said that he has a dragon tooth sword, because he used one of the dragon's fangs as a cool sword. And basically he just kind of attached one of Wizard's old staffs onto his sword, because yeah. So also, if you notice, there's like this little slot where his sword goes through, kind of like samurai. Just had to point that out. Now, without further ado, like I said in the Sworden video, I said that I would reveal my concept map known as Jurassic Jam. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and show it. So here is the entire map. Before this pterodactyl was added, this is just kind of how it looked. So the track is kind of plain and simple, though it actually is longer in its like actual game form than in this drawing. So there's 2 entryways, one coming from the lush forest, and one coming from the den, pretty much where some enemies will come from, and most enemies will come from the lush forest. So pretty much enemies will make their way, go up this little hill here, and then they'll make a loop-de-loop through here. And I did this thing that not many maps do, they have like a raised area that enemies will walk up to, and then they'll go up and all the way, and they'll take like give it 30 or so seconds to reach their base once they get up the ramp. So yeah, like I said, it is longer than in the drawing. And if you noticed, I added a bunch of details that will hint into the enemies. Like this little cave underneath the base of the tower heroes with that has a small Smilodon in it, or a saber-toothed tiger. And I basically added some rocks so it gets up to it, so it can climb up to its cave. And if you see here, this tiny volcano is actually just a fossil ant mound. And yeah, the fossil ants are kind of bigger than the mound, but this is what, and they can actually remove the fossils on their abdomen so they can fit into their mound. And if you didn't notice this, you can see that there's a stump just chilling behind the base of the heroes. And this stump's name is actually Majestic Stump. And you can tell it's like growing all sorts of fruit on it. And once I explain this guy, I'll get into the lore. Oh, and the golem. So, and yeah, that's just a pterodactyl. That's one of the main enemies. And it's kind of just like for decoration, where it just flies around the map. And for this golem, it actually somehow found its way underground, and it's kind of just gotten trapped in an underground cave. And yeah, that's it. So pretty much how the towers got here is, it's a little simple. So scientist was making a time machine to go back in time to collect some artifacts so that she could study them. But when she tested the machine with her friends, it went wrong somehow, and maybe because of an enemy attacking them. And basically the calibration went wild, and it sent them all the way back to the prehistoric ages. So now, and pretty much they chose this base up above where all the dinosaurs are so that they won't get attacked. But on this day, they will be attacked. And they kind of just gathered up their own food supply. And they did manage to have this Majestic Stump as a friend. So yeah, that's just this very simple lore. Now, here's the name, obviously. And now, without further ado, let's get into the enemies. So, first off is the Compy, or the Compsognathus. Just a quick note before I read any of the other enemies. Yes, the normal enemies will still be in this map, but mostly these new enemies will be in the map. And next is a dewdrop slime, or just a dew slime. I think this might have been used in another concept map, but I'm not fully sure. But this dew slime has a tiny little leaf that's stuck onto it. Next is the golden viper, or just G viper for short. And it's kind of just like the outlaws, but without both eyes on one side of its head, because I don't know why both eyes on one side of the head is just weird. Just like the Taurox and the outlaws, and yeah, it's just weird. So next is Gally, who is a Gallimimus. And I kind of just gave him like long feet like a kangaroo so he could run fast. Next is the big dew slime. So basically, big dew slime is actually just made up of a bunch of smaller dew slimes. And it's kind of like the honey slimes, where they, instead of like hopping up, they just kind of like slide around. And this time, since in this you can still see the same leaf that's stuck onto it. But this time it's got a whole bush stuck into it. Oh, actually, yeah, never mind. I'll get into that later. So, next is the raptor, which will come from the dens. And they're pretty fast enemies, but they don't have a lot of health. Next is everyone's favorite enemy, golems, for some reason. I think it's just because like every concept map has a really cool idea for golems. So introducing the fossil golem, and it has like a little bit of shrubbery growing on its back. There's like a little bit of dinosaur fossil that's connecting an arm, and there's like a big old ammonite fossil shell that's like just imprinted in its head. Now, I did come up with these two enemies like a little early ago. So, meet the cave goblin and the brute cave goblin. So, cave goblins are mainly just feral goblins in general, but the brutes are like leaders of a pack, and they lead their cave goblins through situations like fighting dinosaurs and stuff. Metrodon or Dimetrodon. Basically, it also comes from the dens, and is a pretty like slippery and fast enemy. But yeah, that's kind of it. Now, I did give some enemies traits that could kind of sabotage you. So, Snaptrap. Basically, what Snaptrap does is that, say you have like a level 1 Slime King, level 1 Oddport, or level 1, any level 1 summoner, except Beatrice and Hades. So basically, the mechanic is that whenever a really weak summon gets near a Snaptrap, it will actually eat up the summoner, or just the summon, which is a really weird mechanic, but, you know, I decided to add it because I want this map and enemies to be unique. Next is Baby Stego, one of the many Stegos that you will see throughout these enemies. See, and it's basically just a Stegosaurus coming out of an egg. The second to last enemy on this page is the Ammonite, and it's basically just an Ammonite that somehow found its way on land, and now it's just a land dweller. Fossil ant, and if you were paying attention to earlier, you'll see the mound of fossil ants. And yeah, they wear, think of like hermit crabs. They wear like a bunch of different shell like objects to like house their softer abdomen underneath. That's kind of the same deal with fossil ants. Alright, let's go to the next page. So here's a bunch of stuff. Well, say hello to the big fossil golem. Now, this golem has basically just built up a lot of fossils, foliage, and a bunch of rock to hold it together. You can see that there's a T-Rex skeleton that's kind of like housing one of the hands. There's a bunch of other fossils that are like on the body. This little dinosaur tail sticking out of its leg. Terry the Terror Bird. And yeah, he's just a terror bird. That's kind of it. And here is the normal size Stego. Again, another Stegosaurus you'll see throughout here. And I did give the giant and Colossus Stego abilities, but I think you'll find out later what they are. Para, or the Parasaurolophysis. Now, I kind of went off of different things, because I did a little bit of research that Parasaurolophysi are like related to horse, and any other hadrosaurs are horse related. So I basically just gave Para some hooves. And I also did some Jurassic Camp Cretaceous, and I gave it some this stripe, kind of like how the Camp Cretaceous Parasaur have. That makes them like glow. And again, here's the majestic stump. You can see all kinds of fruit growing on it, and yeah, they did. And yeah, the heroes, when they first saw one, they did manage to tame it. And here we have the Sabertooth or Smilodon plus its cave lion variant. So yeah, before the Sabertooth didn't have any stripes, but since it's like a tiger, I decided to give it some stripes. And for the cave lion variant, that just came up that like last minute. And yeah, I did give some like twigs and leaves in its mane. On to Trike. Basically, Trike is a trike. no further explanation. And here's a boulder, a very unique kind of golem. So pretty much, think of like I can't think of the name. Never mind. But yeah, this enemy kind of golem basically just like rolls around, and that's why I give it some like dizzy eyes to simulate him being dizzy. And here's the fossil spider. And if you guys have arachnophobia, I'm sorry and not sorry at the same time. And basically, think of just again like with the fossil ants, they have a giant fossil like around their body, but for fossil spiders, they actually have this like build up on their body. So basically what you see on its abdomen is basically just hard rock, plus a giant ammonite shell with a bunch of foliage, and 2 of its legs are having to hold up the fossil on its body. Its legs were actually specially adapted to do this. And it has big, like, meaty fangs, so it can trap prey easily. And basically, over time, when it's going through the track, this fossil spider will summon fossil ants. Now again, like the cave lion variant, the haunted fossils were last minute. And I gave them 2 different variants, the raptor fossil and the viper fossil. This is supposed to be like a T-Rex, but smaller. So I guess like a juvenile Rex. So yeah. And you can see like there's a little core in their chest where that's actually how they're living. And yeah. So hey, say hello to the giant fossil golem. And this golem is so old he's just so old that he's built up so much foliage and fossils onto his body. His arm has fallen off and is now like exposing a T-Rex arm skeleton. Same thing with his leg, but now it's just like a dinosaur skeleton leg. And there's a raptor fossil just like sticking out of his arm, and an entire trach spine and skull as an arm. And there's also a big old T-Rex body just laying on top of it. Now to the second to last enemy on this page, the pterodactyl. And kind of like in the one with the map preview, this one is holding a fish in its mouth. I was gonna add a variant on the page without a fish in its mouth, but that would have taken up too much space. And plus, I wouldn't really have enough space anyways. I was also really thinking of adding one that was flying, but nah. And again, here's the last enemy on this page. Giant stego. And like I said when I introduced you to normal stego, the giant stego can stun your heroes. But not for long, because I like keeping stuff balanced. But yeah, it's just kind of just an angrier stego that doesn't like them. And now for the bosses and mini-bosses. So let's talk about the mini-bosses first. So the first mini-boss is Brachy, the Brachiosaurus, who literally towers over towers, but literally just towers over every single enemy besides this dude we'll talk about later. And yeah, that's kind of it for Brachy. And here we have the Raptor King, who's the leader of all raptors, and basically can control the raptors of his own will. He gained his status as being an elder raptor. And there's a little scar across his face, as you can see there. And here's Anki, the Ankylosaurus. And he can also stun heroes with his big old club tail he's got there. There we go. And I kind of went off of more of a turtle look for Anki, so you can kind of see like a little bit of a base shell for Anki. Now let's talk about the bosses. Hey. Colossus Stego. Just like Giant Stego, Colossus Stego can stun your heroes for a little bit longer. And I decided to add some like HP scaling, not like scaling up as in going higher to more players, but like giving them a certain amount of HP, because how much HP would you, like, how would you know how much HP they have? So this is the easy boss, and its speed is 0.5. And considering that these are big bosses, I feel like I would make them slow. So the HP is 70,000, and you can see that the spikes on its tail have like really overgrown and like started growing new ones. And there's a big old scar on its eye from an attack from the hard boss, who we'll talk about later, or in a minute. So here is the Dinosuchus, which is the medium boss, and has an HP of 150,000. Its speed is 1, and again is the medium boss. So, pretty much just a plain gigantic crocodile. I did take a little bit off the gargle with the end of the snout. That's kind of it. And here is the one, the only hard boss, Tyrant Lord. He's the one who gave the scar to Colossus Stego. And he has his own fair share of scars, like a gigantic one across his face and a few scratch marks across his body. And now, even though he may look small, he is just ginormous. I did make him like really big in the old version of Jurassic Jam. And as an HP of 550,000 and a speed of 0.4. And again, hard boss. So now to the skins and Mimic skin. Don't mind me. There we go. So here, let's talk about the skins first. So for the easy skin I chose, I just kind of remastered the old cave chef I had. And so basically what it means by objects when attacking, because you know when chef attacks, he usually like a bunch of apples and oranges will spew out over. So, and I kind of wanted to remake that by him launching out bones and skulls. And this is level 1. I also made him more dinosaur-like by giving dinosaur feet and partial dinosaur arms and a little tail. So for the medium skin, say hello to Pterodactyl Bebo, which is the medium skin. And basically it goes from the pterodactyl from being in a hatched egg to the where Bebo's flying is riding on the moon, flying across in circles. And I didn't really draw it, but instead of shooting ice cream, he would shoot fish out at enemies. And here's the one I had the most trouble designing, the hard skin, because I had a completely different thing for a skin, but I decided to make the mini boss Anki into a skin for Hot Dog Frank. Because Hot Dog Frank does have good skins, but I would love to have a skin that would change up his icon. Because I do know a Hot Dog Frank skin that does change up his animations, which is the sushi skin. And yeah, basically like an Ankylosaurus would, the Anki skin would swing around his tail. And now here is the Mimic skin and the Mimic itself. Say hello to Dino Mimic. And I wanted to make this more fair than having a 1 in 1,000 chance like most special mimics. And that's its spawn chance, 1 in 150. So literally what I did is that I just took a raptor and I just strapped a mimic to its back that it's kind of like carrying. And what it gives is a Slime King skin known as Dino King. And it starts off as the Tyrant Lord as a little youngling with eggs surrounding him, which will be hatched as his friends in later levels. But since I'm not really going to draw all the levels like I did, I just made the levels go from level 1 to 5. And this is the final level. Kind of just like, he's still in the nest from level 1, but you can see that there's a stego, a triceratops, or a trike with its egg still, climbing on the Tyrant Lord. And there's a Dilophosaurus, or Dilopho, which I didn't really add in the enemies list. Cause yeah. And here's the pterodactyl. And if you can notice that the eggshells of all the hatched dinosaurs are still here. This is the egg of the Dilophosaurus. It's just hard to see. And yeah, I just added some nice foliage around to give the skin some more depth and coolness. Well, that's all I have to share for you today. Wow, this video was almost 30 minutes long. My longest video ever. Well, I'm really nice, and I'm really glad you guys joined back in on the TWF channel, aka the Wandering Face channel, to see what I've created for you today. Well, I'm glad you could join, and see you later.